All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Yak podcast. We have a returning guest from the NFL, Cincinnati Bengals, as a beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer. We had him on in week 4 or 5. How are you doing, Charlie?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great. We got a great Super Bowl.
Yeah, two number 4 seeds, two teams who made really aggressive moves to go out and get quarterbacks, but it happened really quicker than a lot of people expected on both sides.
Yeah, definitely. But obviously the Bengals are the big story. Joey Burrow is like the hottest guy in the NFL right now. What's it been like covering the team this season?
It's a group of people that really like each other, and I think that that's really the message that's been stressed. Joe's in an interesting spot. Everyone will say this, he's cool, calm, and collected. He's not the rah-rah guy, the insane motivational speech guy, with one exception. But when he speaks, people listen, and he's surrounded by a group of players who said a louder, enthusiastic tone. Your CJ Uzamas, your DJ Readers, Joe Mixons, Tyler Boyd's, Jesse Bates's, Von Bell's. They have a number of mid-career guys who the Bengals scouted, signed, drafted because of their leadership skills, their football IQ, their versatility on the field, and their talent. And that all has clicked. And now here we go with the Bengals.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think that when I had you on, we were talking about, they could win the division, but we never expected this.
It's true. It's true.
But I think the week after, I actually think they lost to the Jets. But it's crazy how, the NFL works, anybody can lose on any week, but they made it this far.
Yeah, I think that's just a credit to the passing game, getting in its greatest rhythm of the season at the right time. And the defense as well. They've gotten an interception in the last minute, if you count overtime, against the Chiefs. Of every playoff game they've played so far. It's a defense that wasn't creating interceptions at a high rate at all in the regular season. But the film study, the prep, a little bit of luck has panned out at the perfect moment when they needed it. And here they are.
Yeah, they definitely played in some shootouts. I remember the Chiefs game in the regular season and the Chargers game too. I think, was that the last game they lost, the Chargers game?
They lost the next week as well to the 49ers, and then
Okay,
in week
gotcha.
18 they lost, but they weren't playing any of their starters, so that doesn't count.
But it seems like, they can play either way if their defense is having a bad game, like, their offense has plenty of weapons.
That was exactly the idea. They kind of siloed it. They used the draft to build an offense. Higgins, Chase, Burrow, Jonah Williams, their left tackle, Jackson Carman, who was supposed to be their starting right guard. And they used free agency to get these experienced veteran defensive guys, Von Bell, Mike Hilton, Trey Hendrickson, Shobe Uje, Larry Ogunjobi. And the idea was defensively specifically creating a deep group of, again, mid-career guys, probably not any singular stars, but a group that, again, could execute a wide variety of schemes. The Bengals come out with a big defensive adjustment in the second half against the Chiefs, and it worked because they had the right type of guys who were very talented in their own right and very, very good at being flexible and adjusting to what they see on the fly.
I wanted to talk about that AFC Championship game. Were you at Arrowhead?
I was.
That must have been a ridiculous atmosphere in the first half. Like the yin and yang from the first half to the second half for the Chiefs and the fans, I'm sure.
Yeah, but then, play everyone's still talking about is the Chiefs trying to get that touchdown at the end of regulation. That sucked the life out of the stadium. I'm usually 99.9% of the time not a believer in momentum, but the Bengals went in at halftime and made a halftime adjustment, and you have a lot more enthusiasm and anticipation as you hear and process that adjustment when you're coming off that stop at the end than you would have if you hadn't gotten that stop. So that was a big play that completely changed the entire feeling in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of momentum, I feel like at least you grow in confidence, if not anything else. Especially when P. Ryan just had that touchdown on that screen pass, and then you stop them in the red zone. That has to mean something.
Of course, and it's a team that literally, you mentioned a couple games, against the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 4, they were down 14-0 at the half, had a goal line stand before halftime, then went on a run in the second half. Against the Chargers, they ended up losing that game, but they were down 21-0 and came back, and they should have taken the lead before a fumble against the Chiefs in the regular season. They were down 14 in the second quarter and came back to win that game. This team has been in that situation before. They've overcome some insane deficits. That's where Burrow and the skill position players can make up any difference. And that piece of it was by design too. They can play with their backs against the wall because when the other team's expecting them to pass, they still have the one-on-one matchups they can rely on to create big plays.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like even the Chiefs game, a couple of my friends were talking, the Chiefs are going to blow them out, or, Patrick Mahomes is unstoppable. But we just saw in week, 16 or 17, that they competed with them. They were right there with them.
Yeah, in week 17, Joe Burrow outplayed Pat Mahomes in that game as well. It was one of the most exciting comebacks of the NFL season, and the Chiefs couldn't guard Jamar Chase. That was the game where the Bengals clinched the AFC title and really announced themselves that they could be a Super Bowl contender this season. That was the moment where it kind of all became real, and they fed off that momentum heading into the playoffs.
Especially when you come off a big win against the Titans, and you see the Chiefs, although they won against the Bills in incredible fashion, their defense wasn't looking like anything special. Like you could easily throw on them. It's what I was, from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing was, in most games it's been the red zone, but the Bengals weren't even struggling in the red zone against the Chiefs. There were a couple setbacks they had. Isaiah Prince lost a one-on-one matchup to, I think, Melvin Ingram, committed a holding penalty that held him back. Chris Jones got in the way of a couple big plays. But aside from that, Burrow flipped a switch. He's this incredible playmaker under pressure. And by pressure, I mean with pressure coming right at him. And that's what ended up happening. 2 escaping the pocket on the run throws to Chase on the sideline, and then 2 plays where he scrambled for a first down on third down, where he should have been sacked on both plays. That's the difference, and that's what Joe Burrow can do.
Yeah, I think that was a play when Chris Jones had basically 2 hands on him, but he spun out of it.
Yep.
Did that remind you from any play in the regular season, or has he shown that scrambling ability?
Burrow's done that about 40 times, man. Trying to think what my favorite one was. There was one against the Steelers in week 3. It was the first time he did it. There was this huge third down run against the Denver Broncos in week 15. A huge one against the Titans in the second round of the playoffs. It was, I think, third down. Burrow basically avoids a sack, sprints right up the middle, gets real low, sneaks through, gets hit as he gets the first down, stands up and does Joe Mixon's first down celebration, the finger point, enthusiastically for the first down. He loves that part of the game too. He played both ways, defense and offense, growing up. He loves hitting people. He loves getting hit even. That's a part of the whole experience for him. And the fact that he relishes that has really helped him.
Yeah, it seems like, him transferring from Ohio State to LSU, and then him, immediately going on a championship run, I think in his second year at LSU. I feel like he's always had that confidence and that, winning mentality.
And it's not just, so yes, but there's even more to that as well. In 2020, before the Bengals even drafted Burrow, defensive tackle DJ Reader, a huge piece for them, was deciding between the Broncos and the Bengals. His agent told him, do you want to bet on Drew Lock or Joe Burrow? This past offseason, 2021, Burrow was the one who hosted the recruiting free agent dinner with Mike Hilton, Shelby Wuje, Larry Ogunjobi, Riley Reef, and Burrow's presence and him working the room. That was the difference. And he had those players thinking very highly for the expectations of the Bengals this season. And that all ties back to what Joe Burrow did in 2019 at LSU. He made it so obvious that he was a transcending quarterback, that he had that credibility in the NFL before he had even done anything.
Yeah, I mean, he had probably one of the best quarterback in terms of just pure quarterback seasons in college, of all time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there's the Chase factor as well. It's no secret that the Bengals watched every Jamar Chase snap because they watched every Joe Burrow snap. And he really fit with their philosophy of explosiveness in the offense as well. And I could give 10 plays about where the connection and the timing and the chemistry between Burrow and Chase have completely flipped around the Bengals season as well. That's all tied into the calculus too.
I think these past couple of games may have trained him, in terms of his scrambling ability. He might need that against the Rams.
And that's the thing, I've been thinking about this. If there was any quarterback you would want with the Bengals offensive line against the Rams pass rush, I think Joe Burrow is the guy. Literally, I don't think he's as good yet as Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, even though he just outplayed Mahomes. I'm blanking out. He's probably right
Maybe
there with
Josh Allen. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would take Burrow over those three quarterbacks with this offensive line against that pass rush, because I don't think there's another quarterback at all in the NFL who's that good at bouncing back from hits, that good at escaping pressure and being accurate as he escapes pressure, and that good at almost creating belief in an offense, even when it's stalling.
Yeah, I mean that Titans game, you have like a record amount of sacks, but you still win the game. You never see that.
That's the thing too. Like I feel like it can't be worse than the Titans game for the Bengals. You know what I mean? And they won that one. The Rams aren't going to sack Burrow 10 times. And the Bengals survived that game. So, I guess they can survive this one too.
Have you like heard or talked to them? Like, do you think they'll implement a more shorter passing game? Quicker screens and stuff like that.
Yeah, they've been doing a lot of that lately. Like, look at how they scored against the Titans and against the Chiefs. Against the Titans, their one touchdown drive was a series where Burrow threw a screen to Higgins on 4th down. Burrow scrambled for a 1st down, and then Joe Mixon ran for a touchdown. Their other big play early in that game came on a 53-yard screen to Jamar. We ran up the left sideline. Against the Chiefs, they scored in the second half. I'm blanking out right now, but they scored in the second half. I mentioned earlier. Yes, they set up.
They set up the P Ryan screen in the first half.
All right, perfect. Yep, I was about to skip that one, but yep, they set it up. Their first touchdown with the P Ryan screen. Their second touchdown came on a play where Burrow scrambled, found Jamar on the side. Then they scored. There was another touchdown where Burrow scrambled and found Jamar in the exact same way, and then the next play he threw a fade to Jamar. So yes, and then the 2 field goals at the end of regulation and in overtime. What set those up were very short, quick crossing routes to T. Higgins. So it's not like they're trying these crazy bootlegs or anything like that. Quick timing, screens. Sometimes the Burrow will hold on to the ball longer, but that's because he has to, and he's able to make plays in that setting.
People were complaining about running the ball against the Chiefs. I guess like running too much, not going immediately in shotgun. Do you think they'll continue that? At least try to establish the run game a little bit.
That's a loaded question. You hit on something, and I go back and forth on this. So, like, in theory, no, but also in theory, if you break 3 or 4 of those runs, which the Bengals did against the Chiefs, they had a ton of negative runs in that game. But Mixon had, I think, a 23-yard run early in the first half that set up their first field goal. And then he had that touchdown run later in against Tennessee, against the Chiefs on one of those scoring drives. He had a big run going the other way as well. When those work, those usually set up points, and they've been willing to live with that and not try to be perfect and almost to try to kind of save their punches almost and limit Burrow's innings like he's a starting pitcher early in the game. So the run game kind of plays that role. Now the Rams have a great run defense, really tremendous. They have to establish the threat of the run in that game for sure, or else the Rams could drop back 7 or 8 defenders on every single snap. Overall, I mean, Joe Mixon's a Pro Bowler. He's earned touches in the Super Bowl, but there's no doubt about it. The Bengals are at their best when it's just Burrow unleashed.
Yeah, I mean, even like a chase screen, a Higgins screen.
Yeah, which they've done in each of the last 3 games a ton.
Yeah. I mean, the Rams defense, I feel like they're most likely going to drop back with their D line. I guess they're capable of just, rushing 4 or whatever.
I mean, that's what the book tells them to do, rush 4. The Rams' unique thing is how much they move their defensive linemen across the line of scrimmage to create mismatches, how much they do after the snap too to get certain matchups that they want, and play zone behind that. Burrow has been not significantly, he's still been very good, but I think he's the second best in the NFL against man defense, and he's like 14th against zone, significantly less efficient. So that's my expectation, rush 4 with zone behind it. And, that gives their cornerbacks who, aside from Jalen Ramsey, are going to have mismatches against the Bengals wide receivers. That'll give them more help consistently, as the Rams are going to be able to dictate more help where they need it in zone coverage.
From your, game tape or whatever from the Rams, do you feel like it's going to be a more offensive game?
I'm not expecting a shootout, to be honest, with the way both defenses are playing. The Bengals have successfully, I don't want to say limited possessions, but played more of, I like to call it the Big Ten style as opposed to the Big 12 style in the playoffs. The Bengals aren't a no-huddle team. They're not run and shoot. It's the most explosive offense in the NFL, but it's also a lot of two tight end power, establish the run to kind of wear defenses down and keep the game under control that way as well. They haven't played except for that Kansas City game, the Chargers game. I can't think of many other true shootouts that the Bengals have played this season. When they played the Packers in week 4, that was a 25-22 game. So overall, I think it's gonna be one of those in that range.
I just remember, speaking of that Packers game, I remember I think McPherson's missed 1 or 2 field goals in that game, but he's come a long way. Obviously, it's a rookie year.
What's funny is the only reason he missed the game winner in that game was because of a quote never before seen gust of wind that blew over. The kick looked good. Everyone thought it was a good kick. McPherson's incredible, man. He's the most popular kicker I've ever seen. He's going viral consistently. He's been compared to Joe Burrow with this cool, calm, collected nature under pressure. My favorite part, too, is he's the youngest one on the team. The punter and the holder are the 2 longest tenured Bengals. They're both approaching 40. They've been doing this since like 2008. Only for the Bengals, and they've suffered through some lean years, and then McPherson just comes in and expects like this is the norm. But he certainly played a massive part in it, consistently changing the way the Bengals can call an offense because of how we can hit from 50, 55, 58. And defensive coordinators account for that too when they guard the Bengals in that part of the field, and that's created a lot of opportunities to get first downs as well. You can't underestimate his impact.
Yeah. I feel like it's just going to be a fun game against the Rams. Like, I'm just really excited. Like, just as a neutral.
Yeah, it's a Super Bowl. And it's, again, it's 2 similar offenses with unique differences. 2 teams that invested a ton in wide receivers. And that's my favorite position in the NFL. And the mismatches that both teams are going to try to create is going to be the fascinating wrinkle of the entire game plan. And, that's what you pay to see. Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, and Del Beckham and T. Higgins and see those guys go to work.
T. Higgins looks like a tight end sometimes out there. Like, he's like, what, 6'5"? He's huge.
Something like that. He plays even taller. He's like, I call him their power forward. His contested catch skills are as good as any receiver in the NFL. I think he had a 1,000-yard season. I think he ranked like around 14th in receiving yards in the NFL this year, and he missed 2 games, and he played with Jamar Chase. He's a guy they lean to for massive catches. As I said earlier, he set up the 2 go-ahead and game-winning field goals with catches over the middle. Teams now in the last 2 minutes of the second half in particular just go all out on stopping Jamar Chase. So since week 7, T. Higgins has had this incredible production in the last 2 minutes of the first half in particular, and has been their go-to guy in that situation, which the Bengals have really taken advantage of. He's certainly a number 1 receiver, certainly an exciting player. And the Bengals did this all on purpose. So you have Higgins, you have Chase, you have Boyd, and that philosophy is really what Zach Taylor really stressed when he got to Cincinnati.
Yeah, I feel like they all have sure hands. If you throw to them, like, you're never going to be disappointed.
Yeah, again, by design as well. Zach Taylor is a saying, like he says, it's so hard to find guys who are athletic and can catch the ball. Like, shouldn't be, you'd think every receiver was like that, but he says it's harder than you think because so many guys aren't as reliable as you need them to be at that position. And that's why there's extra emphasis on investing so much more than you need to in the wide receiver position. Both the Bengals and the Rams have invested more than anyone else in the NFL at that position.
Yeah. Do you think it's like, what do you think is more likely to happen? Like, it's going to be like, I think you said it's not going to be a shootout. So you think, more of a, like, I guess, do you think the Rams receivers will have the advantage or the Bengals receivers?
Well, I think the Bengals have the better quarterback, and I think they have the more explosive offense. And so I think in that matchup, I also think they have a deeper secondary to 11 on the Rams. Their safeties have been so injured. Eric Weddle, obviously. That's a matchup to take advantage of at safety. The Rams linebackers are the weakness in coverage reader in particular that they have. That's a guy who frequently gets targeted. The Bengals have a great slot receiver in Tyler Boyd, who's done really well against linebackers who aren't great in man-to-man coverage. So that's certainly an advantage I see for the Bengals.
And shout out Tyler Boyd. I had him in fantasy since 2015, and he's always a dependable wide receiver.
Well, he's kind of had a quiet year this year. He's kind of had to sacrifice, but look at Denver, he had this massive 130-yard game against Denver. Third down, the Tyler Boyd choice route. Here's how much teams think of Tyler Boyd. The Bengals have Higgins and Chase. Boyd had like an 800, 900-yard season, something quieter than those guys. He had been a 1,200-yard receiver before. Teams still double team Tyler Boyd on third down because they value what he can do so much in that situation. And that's something they really want to take away on third and short, in particular, his great timing and choice routes and like fluidity in his routes creates a lot of opportunities that the Bengals rely on. Even though the stats don't show it, he's had to sacrifice some defenses. He's really still making an impact on how defenses are playing him.
He's probably telling those other wide receivers, man, I've been through a lot. You guys are lucky.
There's like that literally. Boyd's a great example. You might know this, you've had him in fantasy. Drafted in 16, 17. He was inactive some games, a healthy scratch. Guys like Brandon LaFell were playing over him, like Cody Core, not highly touted wide receivers, and he had to make an adjustment. And he fully did. And in 2018, the switch flipped, had a 1,000-yard season. Zach Taylor comes in 2019, believes so strongly in what Boyd can do that he makes Boyd one of the 25 highest paid receivers in the NFL. And Boyd has kept up that approach and that intensity and that philosophy and that style. And that's really been what the Bengals have built their wide receiver core around. And Boyd has shared that exact message and his exact story with Higgins and with Chase to try to share those words of wisdom.
Yeah, I didn't even realize, like, before you said it, that these are two of the best. These are, I think, the two best wide receiver teams.
Especially when you look at like the third wide receivers, even those guys are great. Like, let's just look at
even the fourth option, like Uzama, Higbee, whatever.
I wrote about this week, and if you look like who really invested the most, I think it's these two teams. The Rams have two guys on $16 million extensions at wide receiver plus 2 second-round picks. The number 33 pick. When those guys hit the free agent market, they'll be making at least 16 a year. Plus Tyler Boyd, who's a top 25 paid receiver at his position. Plus they have a nice veteran in Auden Tate. He's been hurt, but I still count him as someone we're going to rely on entering the season. That's a plus. They have one of the highest paid running backs in the NFL as well. I mean, both these teams, the theme is how much they've invested in skill position players.
He's a great pass catcher also. Like, he was known for that as well, I think, coming out of Oklahoma.
Exactly.
Uzama's a pretty young guy as well, right?
He's one of the elder statesmen. He's not old.
Oh, really?
He drafted in 2015.
Okay.
So this is his 6th season in the league. He was another guy who had a couple of redshirt seasons. He's a guy that never lined up in a 3-point stance at all in college because he went to Auburn, and at the time with Gene Chizik, they were in a very, very spread offense. And so he had to learn all the blocking stuff. He was still unpolished as a wide receiver, lots of inactives basically before 2018. Then again, Zach Taylor comes in at 19 and says, Uzama is the guy I want, even though he hasn't had this tremendously statistically shockingly impressive career. I see something there. Uzama had a solid year in 2019, but Andy Dalton and Ryan Finley were his quarterbacks, so we didn't get a ton of opportunity to show what he can do over the middle of the field. 2 games into 2020, he tears his Achilles. Comes in 2021, has an absolutely career year, 100-yard game against the Jaguars and the 2 biggest catches of the game, 100-yard game against the Ravens and like a 60-yard touchdown against the Raiders, made one of the plays of the game with this incredible throw. Burrow found him over the middle. He's a massive part of the offense. Frankly, he's dealing with an MCL sprain right now. He's questionable for the Super Bowl. It's a legit concern. How would the Bengals replace him because of how valuable his presence over the middle of the field is?
Yeah, that could be huge in terms of blocking and especially with their D line. Yep. Is there any other injuries that we should look out for?
No one. I don't want to discount these guys, but the injuries are more reserves. Defensive end Cam Sample, who's one of the rotational pass rushers, missed last week with a groin injury. Defensive tackle Josh Tupou, who's a run stopper, has been dealing with an MCL injury himself, and special teams guy Stanley Morgan. Jackson Carman, their starter. I think he would start at right guard this week. It's been a rotation. Surprisingly missed the last 2 practices with a back injury. We haven't gotten a distinct, specific, concrete update on his health right now. Again, I think he would start this week, even though he hadn't started since October. At the end of October. That's a huge question mark. But again, he hasn't been starting anyway. It would be more of about wanting to make a change at that position. So they still do have Akeem Adeniji, the guy who had been starting at right guard since November.
And thanks for joining me, man. It was a fun. You have so much information. Like you're ready to spit it out.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. You got any? Have you made a prediction yet, or not yet?
Yeah, I kind of hinted at it. Like, here's in this game what I value. I value who is a better quarterback, who is the more explosive offense that can get touchdowns, and which defense is more likely to create turnovers. I think Burrow's the better quarterback. I think the Bengals have the more explosive wide receivers. Cooper Kupp's the best wide receiver, but I think that the combination that the Bengals have is more explosive. And the Bengals have been the best team in creating turnovers in the NFL over like the last 6 weeks. And Matthew Stafford leads the NFL in interceptions. I see a turnover going the Bengals' way, and I see Cincinnati, shocking as it sounds, winning the Super Bowl.
Another McPherson game winner.
So I haven't come up with the score. Right now, I think I'm going with like 28-24. So I guess that would be no, but it would. I mean, if you're Zach Taylor and I offered you right now McPherson from 50 at the gun, I think Zach would take that.
Yeah. All right, man. It was a pleasure.
Yep.
Please follow Charlie, on Twitter throughout the Super Bowl week. You said you're going there on Tuesday, right? Are you excited?
Yeah. I mean, how wouldn't I be excited?
In your second year, right? You're making it all the way to the Super Bowl.
You don't even think about, like, when you enter this business, you don't even think about covering a Super Bowl because it just seems so unlikely. And so it's a special experience and we're looking forward to it.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Follow Charlie on Twitter. Follow his work at the Cincinnati Enquirer. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time.